What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from TheTokenMinorities, and I am back with the Week 7 battle of the GBA Season 8, where your undefeated Kansas City Jirachiefs are squaring off against the mysterious Coach Z and his Columbus Chew. Make sure to go check out my opponent's channel as well as the side of the match. He's going to be linked down in the description below. Now, this week, we are looking to extend our winning streak, and by winning this week, if my sources are correct, that would mean that we have possession of the GBA record for the best start to the regular season by starting 7-0. So that's obviously going to be the goal here in this battle, but let's just see how this goes. As my opponent, Coach Z, decided to bring the Blaziken, the Manaphy, the Mega Gardevoir, Sneasel, Celebi, and Porygon 2. And as for what I brought, make sure to check out the Team Builder, which is going to be linked down on the first line of the description below. But just to very briefly summarize, I am bringing a Focus Sashed Aerodactyl to get up Stealth Rocks against this team, pretty much guaranteed, as I didn't expect him to bring any hazard removal. Blaziken is the only thing on this team that he brought that could have removal, and I don't think it has Defog. So I am a Focus Sash, Stealth Rock, and Aerodactyl with Edgequake and Tailwind. I am an Autotomized Celesteela meant to set up on a fighting move locked Blaziken, or maybe set up on a Sneasel, maybe set up on his Mega Gardevoir. Those are three major sources of setup fodder for the Celesteela, but I'm also relatively bulky as well to be able to take hits from the Mega Gardevoir. I'm getting a Beast Boost in my special attack. I have Heavy Slam for physical offense to make sure I knock out the Mega Gardevoir, and I have Giga Drain and Air Slash for the rest of this team. Then I have a Hydreigon, which is Choice Scarfed, again with Tailwind, so two Tailwind users to help out my Celesteela and my Mega Venusaur. This also is carrying the U-Turn, the Dark Pulse, and the Draco Meteor. I have the Gardevoir, which is a sub-Calm Mind variant with Toxic as well, and Moonblast. Just a really good mod to take advantage of the Porygon 2, basically meant to lure in the P2, get a Toxic on it so that my Celesteela can win late game. Then I have my Durant, which is an Endure Salac Berry set. It's a good additional check to the Blaziken, as I can Endure on his Flare Blitz, outspeed him the next turn with the Salac Berry, and knock him out with a Superpower or an Aerial Ace. And also is just really a good speed tier against all of his base 100s on his team, essentially. So yeah, good mod here in this matchup. Then I have the Mega Venusaur, which is Leaf Storm, Sludge Bomb, as well as Synthesis and I think Leech Seed on it this week, which just in general is very solid against him offensively and defensively. So that's the team we're bringing this week. In terms of the lead matchups, my plan was always going to be to lead with the Aerodactyl because it does have the Focus Sash and because it matches up relatively well against his entire team no matter what. Basically, the idea would be to get up Stealth Rocks, then potentially a Tailwind right away as well if the proper opportunity arises. But let's go ahead and jump right on into this, and we'll see what my opponent, Coach Z, decides to lead with here in this game. But he is going to challenge me, so of course, good luck to my opponent here in this game. And I am going to lead off with my Aerodactyl as he decides to lead off with Purge, which is his Blaziken. Now, Blaziken is a very big threat to my team in general, so I'm not going to bother going for turn 1 Stealth Rocks. If he decides to go straight for a High Jump Kick or a Stone Edge or whatever on this turn, or even an Agility, I want to get this damage off on it immediately, as he does reveal to be Choice Scarfed and goes for the Baton Pass into his Porygon 2, which is totally fine. I get off a little bit of chip damage on the Porygon 2. I really can't gauge much from this damage. I knew it was going to be fat in the first place. P2 is just naturally really fat, so it's going to chew up this Earthquake with ease, but I'm still going to be able to get off my Stealth Rocks here on the very next turn of the game. And now, after seeing that the Blaziken is Choice Scarfed, I know that Defog is very unlikely on the Blaziken in this matchup. But even so, we are going to go for those rocks here, as the Porygon 2 is going to reveal the Discharge, and I have to hopefully dodge the Paralysis here. And this basically means that I definitely do not want to try to set up my Celesteela on this Porygon 2 later in the game and risk getting paralyzed. So that's just something good to know. Fortunately, I do not get paralyzed here from the P2, as now I'm going to go hard into my Gardevoir because I really fear nothing from this. I don't expect this to be carrying Shadow Ball, and therefore I should be able to get off a Toxic followed by maybe a Substitute or a Calm Mind and get myself in a good offensive position with this Gardevoir that has enough bulk investment to take physical hits, as well as with a Calm Mind take special hits from this thing very easily as well. And as you can see, that Discharge did a net of like what, 21 HP or points of damage. So that's literally nothing, as I am able to get the Toxic off on the P2. So really, the win condition has pretty much been achieved now with Stealth Rocks on the field and with the Toxic on the Porygon 2, as now as soon as I find the proper opportunity for Celesteela and maybe get this P2 whittled a little bit further, I think Celesteela should be able to win this game relatively easily if I play properly. So here, what I'm going to be able to do now is just go straight for the Calm Mind in case he wants to stay in, as he did reveal the Shadow Ball there. So basically, I need to get a Calm Mind up before I'm going to be able to get up a substitute on this. And just in case he wanted to stay in here, I felt like my best play was to go ahead and go for that Calm Mind, as he decides to go hard into his Celebi, which I found very interesting. I wasn't really sure what to expect out of the Celebi on this turn. I felt like he might just go for a Leech Seed, especially after seeing that this is a leftover Celebi. I felt like Leech Seed was a likely play here on this next turn. I'm kind of expecting something like Recover, Leech Seed, Psychic, and maybe U-Turn or Dazzling Gleam on the Celebi here this week. So I was expecting him to go for the Leech Seed, as he actually revealed the Toxic of his own. But in reality, that's not actually that big of a deal, because what I can just do, because this Gardevoir is running Trace as its ability this week, I can just switch Gardevoir into Celebi later on, Trace his Natural Cure, and get rid of the Toxic Poison later on in the game. So that won't be too big of an issue, as I'm able to get off a huge chunk of damage with the Moonblast here, and I can't really tell if this is going to be a 2-hit KO. Plus, I still think it's very likely that he's going to have Recover on his Celebi as well. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to pull a switch out into my Celesteela just to see what his response is. If he does just decide to go for a Recover, that means that the Celebi probably doesn't really have a way to deal with the Celesteela, as he does actually have Leech Seed. So what this tells me, because he has Leech Seed and he is Toxic, so that means his last move is going to be Recover most likely, and then it's going to be Psychic, which means that my Hydreigon is just really free basically against this Celebi at this point, assuming he has Recovery on this Celebi, which I would assume he would have, unless he's just leaning on the Leech Seed recovery for the Celebi this week, because I really did expect him to bring this Celebi as his way to deal with my Breloom, essentially, as he reveals the substitute here. So I guess he is Subseed Toxic as his combination of moves instead of having Recover, which is fine. This just means that he like 100% has Psychic. And I know on this specific turn, he's either going to go for a Toxic or go for a Leech Seed. There's no way you click Psychic in the face of a Hydreigon. So what I'm actually going to be able to do is go into my Venusaur here, just to see what he wants to go for. Not really a big deal either way, because I can just pivot right back into Hydreigon. I know it's really free, honestly, against him to switch Hydreigon directly into the Celebi over and over again, now that its best way to hit me is going to be the Toxic, because I don't think it's going to have any coverage for me. As I'm going to double back into my Hydreigon as he makes a nice play and goes into his Porygon 2, potentially predicting my Hydreigon to come back in. Potentially, I'm not exactly sure. Either way, switching P2 into Mega Venusaur I don't think makes too much sense, as it's already a Toxic Poison, so I'm going to assume he made the prediction of me going into Hydreigon, as what I'm going to be able to do at this point is just go for a U-turn again. Because, as I've already mentioned, my goal with this P2 is just to get it whittled into range of Celesteela, so Celesteela can sweep later in the game. And by getting that chip damage off on the P2, it's going to force him to recover, basically. He can't really attack me as I go into my Mega Venusaur. And now that the Toxic Poison is on the Porygon 2, my Mega Venusaur always beats it 1v1 as well, unless it, for some reason, was carrying, like, Rest, Sleep Talk instead of Recover. So, I know Mega Venusaur is going to be able to beat this 1v1, so I'm just going to fire off some Sludge Bombs. He doesn't switch into it, quite frankly, at all with the team that he brought. He didn't bring either of his Poison Resist and Excadrill or any of his three. He had Excadrill, Hippowdon, and Weezing. Didn't bring any of those, so Sludge Bomb is always going to be very free here in this matchup. So I do get off a little bit of chip damage, as he does actually reveal the Psychic on the Porygon 2, so that's pretty interesting. Didn't expect that at all. So that caught me off guard a little bit there. But what I'm going to be able to do is just fire off another Sludge Bomb in case he wants to make an aggressive switch into his Mega Gardevoir or some other offensive threat. I felt like it was in my best interest to make that play, because it also allows me to continue to whittle down this P2, which will allow Celesteela to win later on in the game. As here, I know he's forced to recover, so this is my turn to get a free recovery with my Mega Venusaur, and if he decides to stay in and damage me, that means this thing is gone, which means he literally doesn't have any checks to the Celesteela here once I get that set up. So he's just going to go for the Psychic instead of the Recovers, so I'll take that in the long term. Yeah, it gets my Mega Venusaur a little bit more weakened, making me potentially a little bit weaker to Sneasel and to the Blaziken, but I do have enough health to survive hits from either of them right now, and I should be able to recover on them whenever the case arises, if I absolutely have to. Plus, I always have the Tailwind option from 2 months to be able to outspeed those and get a Recover or a Synthesis off in that way. As here he goes into the Celebi, going to take this as my opportunity to go into my Gardevoir to trace the Natural joke here, is the worst thing this can possibly do to me on this turn is go for a Leech Seed, or maybe his own substitute. Either way, I'm able to trace the natural cure and pivot directly into Hydreigon again. So yeah, this Celebi is really not going to be able to do too much against me here, just based upon the mons that I decided to bring to this particular game. As he goes for a Psychic on that turn, does negligible damage to the Gardevoir, going to, like I said, pivot out into the Hydreigon, as the Celebi, I believe, decides to go for a Leech Seed on this turn. But that's totally fine. He's going to get some health back from the Leech Seed, obviously, but again, this is just a free U-turn, and I do have a little bit of attack investment on this Hydreigon, so even without the attack investment, U-turn's going to do a sizable amount of damage to the Celebi, especially considering his only recovery is from leftovers and Leech Seed. That basically means that he can't stay in here. He's forced to switch out as well if he wants to preserve his Celebi, so that's exactly what he's going to do. He's going to switch out into the Blaziken, which was the correct play, so good play there on Coach Z's part, as that's going to be able to resist both the Dark Pulse and the U-turn options that I could have gone for. But what that little bit of chip damage does is that guarantees that the Blaziken is now going to be in range of my Celesteela's Air Slash unless he has a significant amount of bulk investments. What I'm going to do here is go into my Aerodactyl to bait out the fighting move. In hindsight, what I actually should have done was left the Aerodactyl in on this turn to take the fighting move and then immediately set up with Celesteela at that point. But what I actually did instead was to go into my Gardevoir here, kind of like a thinking long-term, trying to like preserve differential in the game basically if I could. Went into my Gardevoir there on the predicted high jump kick or superpower, as he makes a really nice play and doesn't take the bait and actually just baton passes out into his Sneasel, but little does he know this is a very, very fat Gardevoir. Bold nature, a lot of HP, max HP, and a lot of defense investment, and even if he went for a Life Orb knockoff, I guaranteed survived from this range, I believe, and he actually gets a crit with a Pursuit, which I also survived very easily, and we're going to be able to stay in and knock out this threat in the Sneasel, taking a little bit more pressure off of the Mega Venusaur to be able to defensively deal with his physical threats. Now, the only physical threat Mega Venusaur potentially has to deal with now is that Blaziken, which I should be able to especially deal with under the Tailwind, but also just naturally take a hit from as long as it is not in Blaze range. So here, he goes into his Mega Gardevoir, and, you know, this is the point in the game where I'm thinking, okay, I didn't take the safer route, potentially, of trying to just set up my Celesteela on a Fighting Locked Blaziken. I can take this route as well, though, as probably the worst thing this thing can do to me, to my Celesteela, that is Thunderbolt me, and I'm guaranteed outside of range of that without a critical hit. So I'm going to sack off my Gardevoir here to these Mega Gardevoirs, so I guess the Mega is better than the regular, but now I'm going to be able to go straight to my Celesteela, and knowing that the best thing he can probably do to hit me is Thunderbolts, I'm going to just go ahead and set up that Autotomize. As the Thunderbolt comes out, we take that very well. He does not, well, relatively well. He does not get the paralysis with the Thunderbolt. I'm able to set out the Autotomize, and now it's looking pretty ugly for Coach Z over there, as I'm going to be able to fire off a very free Heavy Slam, despite the fact that my weight was reduced, and I am actually a modest nature on this Celesteela. This Heavy Slam is still going to easily be able to knock out the Mega Gardevoir. We're going to be able to get the Beast Boost up with this Celesteela, +1 special attack, and we do outspeed the Choice Scarf Blaziken due to my investments. So what this means is that unless he goes hard into his Manaphy right here and tries to take me out with a Z move, it's going to be game over, as he actually tries to go first into his Blaziken, and we're going to be able to outspeed this and knock it out with an Air Slash, and what that means is now I'm going to be a +2 special attack from the Beast Boost. Giga Drain is going to do enough damage to Manaphy to where I'm going to be outside of range of even a Z Surf from the Manaphy, which means Celesteela should be able to wrap up this game, barring any misses or critical hits against his remaining mons. So here he is going to go into Arbiter, the Manaphy, and we are going to fire off the Giga Drain, which actually should have a good chance of knocking it out from this range if it is not a bulk invested Manaphy. And we're going to see from this damage that it does, probably 99%, or I guess I had taken Stealth Rock damage, so basically 86%. I'm not entirely sure exactly what the roll was on his spread. Haven't seen his EV spreads at all for this match, but he barely hangs on. He's going to be able to go for the Z Surf, I imagine, is what this is, and we're going to let the animation go off here. The Hydro Vortex, forgot the name of it there for just a second, and my Celesteela does have enough bulk investment to be able to chew this hit relatively well. Probably actually a little better than I thought it would. Survived on 31 HP. I thought it would cut it a little bit closer, but no, we took that pretty well. We're going to be able to fire off a second Giga Drain here to knock this thing out. All he has left after that point is going to be the Celebi, and knowing that Celebi's EV Celebi's moveset, the best way it can really hit me is through like Leech Seed. I'm thinking this is probably going to be GG, and spoilers, it's going to be GG, as the Celebi's going to come in here. It's going to get outsped by the Celesteela, and it's going to drop to the, I believe, +3 air slash at this point. So finally we're able to pull off the Celesteela sweep. We've tried a few times throughout the season, a few builds, had out my Celesteela as a potential win con, and finally we were able to pull one off here against Coach Z. So good game to Coach Z. I feel kind of bad because like he's capable of winning. I know he's capable of winning. He just hasn't had too much luck with it so far this season. So I really hope that things start to look up for him throughout the end of the season. I really hope he's able to pick up a few wins here, but I'm happy with the result as well on our end. The +5 differential is nice, and the win as well is really nice. We were able to break that record that I believe exists. Well, now it's in our hands with the 7-0 start to the season here in GBA Season 8, so really happy about that. But yeah, once again, great game to my opponent. And we're going to go ahead and move on from this. So unfortunately, we weren't actually able to use the Durant, the Durant in this match. But where I probably would have been able to use the Durant is in the case where maybe my opponent decided to go straight into the Manaphy instead of sacking off the Blaziken. As at that point, what I would have been able to do is weaken down the Manaphy into range of Durant. And at that point, all he had left was a relatively weakened Celebi, as well as the Blaziken, as well as what would have been a weakened Manaphy, and then I could have maybe Endure Salaked with the Durant and gotten a Durant sweep if the Celesteela wasn't able to finish the job. But hey, at least we brought Durant. Maybe we'll have another opportunity later in the season to actually be able to use it. But yeah, so that's about it for this match. Next week we have a game against Aster and his Montreal Hapsels, and you better bet I'm looking for revenge, as last time I played him we actually lost, and that was back in the D-League if you guys followed me back then before the GBA main started this season. So he handed us a pretty fat L, 4-0 L, and we do not want that to happen again. So definitely looking for some revenge, as well as to extend the streak next week against Aster, so you can be looking forward to that. But as far as the question of the day is concerned, question is, what do you think is the best Eviolite holder in draft format? Don't answer Porygon 2. That's the boring answer. That's obviously the best one. Think outside the box a little bit. What are some of the other good Eviolite users that you've seen in draft format? I think there's a lot of them. I think I'm going to go with Volibee personally as the best Eviolite user in draft format. There might be others that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head, but outside of Porygon 2, I think Volibee is probably the best. Just natural bulk, having defog, U-turn, just a lot of good utility options, makes it a good asset to any team. You could also spin the question as just what do you think is the best not fully evolved Pokemon, as Sneasel was brought in this matchup as well as the Porygon 2. In either case, Sneasel is also a very good not fully evolved Pokemon, so that could also be a good answer to the question. So let me know what you think about that in the comments below. But yeah, I think we're about done here, so I'll see you guys later on this week in the press conference or in the team builder and battle for next week against the Montreal Hapsels if you don't watch the press conference. So I will see you guys next time. Peace.